Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Is the country shrinking in size, and what do earthquakes have to do with this? Some schools remain closed after Monday's earthquake. And later in sports, Jamaica selected for FIFA Talent Coach Program. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters, and here are the details. A day after the strongest earthquake to hit Jamaica in 30 years, a revelation that the country is getting smaller based on measurements from global positioning system stations across the island. Now, former head of the earthquake unit and professor of sedimentary geology at the UWI Mona, Simon Mitchell, in an interview on TVJ's Smart Jamaica program this morning, explained that while earthquakes are difficult to predict, the natural disaster stresses can be measured through GPS stations.
I'm sorry?
Getting short.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by that.
It's being
We're
squashed.
shrinking?
It's being squashed very gently. But what that does is that's the stress building up. And then eventually what happens is one of those faults moves and releases that stress. So what we can actually do is measure these sorts of things. Yeah. And what you find is that if you measured it, the Caribbean plate is more or less stationary. Mm-hmm. Jamaica's moving at about 1 centimetre a year relative to the Caribbean plate. Mm-hmm. And the North American plate is also moving at about 1 centimetre a year relative to Jamaica.
Since the start of the year, the country recorded 3 major quakes, registering 3.7, 4.9, and 5.6 on the Richter scale. Uncertainty in the education sector as gates remain closed at some schools following yesterday's early closure due to the earthquake. Our reporter Sandy Williams has been roving the corporate area and filed this report.
Several schools within the corporate area remain closed today following a 5.6 magnitude earthquake that rocked sections of the island yesterday. Kingston College is one of those institutions that has suspended classes for the day in order to carry out assessment of the infrastructure. Now, the principal, Dave Mary, was unable to speak with us, but we understand that he's in a meeting with the officials who will be carrying out the assessments. Now, I'll have more details on the impact of the earthquake on schools within the corporate area in primetime news this evening at 7. Reporting from Kingston College, I'm Sandy Williams for TVJ News. It's back to you in studio.
Thanks, Sandy. In the meantime, speaking on Power 106's Morning Agenda, President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Leighton Johnson, said after a complete assessment of the buildings, some schools which were ordered closed Monday have been given the green light to reopen. Meanwhile, Mr. Johnson says while the experience was frightening, the activation of earthquake procedures within the education sector reduced wide-scale panic amongst the school population.
The principals, school administrators, and the teachers have indicated that having done an assessment, an initial assessment of their buildings, then those schools that were closed, they are now safe for reopening, and students and teachers at this point are returning to school to continue the business of teaching and learning.
Jamaicans are being urged to use their nearest health centres at this time to reduce a burden on public hospitals. This following Monday's earthquake. Shamala Pullen has this TVJ News follow-up.
Scores of people descended on public hospitals for treatment following Monday's tremor. Health officials say it was mainly for panic and anxiety attacks, putting further strain on an already overburdened system. Regional Director of the Southeast Regional Health Authority, Errol Green, says public hospitals are now trying to get back to some level of normalcy.
Our hospitals, for example, KPH and Bustamante, we had higher than normal visits to our accident and emergency units. For Bustamante, we had, even though at the time of the earthquake, the A&E was full, we had 21 students coming in with panic attacks, with anxiety attacks, and two of them at least were hurt. One of them, a decorative block, fell and hit him on the head.
Those persons were treated, but at least 4 were hospitalized. The status of their condition is unknown. Mr. Green says engineers in the various parishes are also visiting hospitals and health centers in the affected parishes to assess their structures.
The state of our buildings at the moment, we have not seen any significant damage to any of our buildings, but we continued the assessment this morning. The city engineer visited a number of our sites along with the town clerk. They went to the St. Joseph's Hospital. They went to the Kingston Public Hospital, and they are going to the Bustamante Hospital for Children this morning just to visit to ensure that the structures are safe for use.
Meanwhile, Mr. Green is making this appeal to the public.
If you don't have to go to the hospital, don't go, because we're suffering from overcrowding now, certainly at KPH and Spanish Town. Try and use the health centers if at all possible, because you do get the same treatment, quality treatment that you would get at the health centers as if you go to the hospitals. But I'll say to the public, rest assured that we have done everything and we are doing everything to ensure that our buildings are safe, not only for the patients, but for our workers and those and family members who will have to come and visit the patients as well.
Shamela Pullen, TVJ News.
The National Works Agency, NWA, says it is working to clear a number of roadways which were impacted by landslides and fallen boulders following Monday's earthquake. NWA Communications Manager Stephen Shaw says communities from Papine to Bull Bay are of great concern.
That area, generally, from Papine through Dallas, Constitution Hill, back to Bull Bay, Byton, those places, they are on a serious fault line. Over the years, I've seen the earth opening up in those areas, even when there isn't an earthquake. Yeah, there is that entire area we know definitely is on a fault line.
And our reporter Jamaica Maitland is in rural St. Andrew, where a number of roads were blocked, and filed this report.
This is the main road leading to Dallas Castle in rural St. Andrew. Now, boulders, huge boulders the size of craters. If you look closely, you'll also notice that houses are still miraculously perched up there. But there are fears that with impending weather, disaster may be waiting to happen. Now, here's a motorist right there. If you can just speak with her a little bit, let's tell us, how are things affecting you? How you think the road look?
The road, well, I tell you, I want to say respect to the community who came out and cleared the road of the trees and the debris since yesterday. Because we came down here about 10 minutes after it happened, and I'm glad to see that part of the road is clear.
At least we can move about.
At least we can move about, and we haven't lost any life, Constitution Hill is all the way up to the school, so you must travel up there and see what has happened up there too.
How bad is it?
You have to go and see for yourself. We want you to come and see what has happened up there.
And even now, there's a looming disaster as well.
Absolutely.
So, you'd like the road to be clear as soon as possible?
Yes, all over for everybody, because we hear there's some in Cane River and Cambridge and other parts of East Rural St. Andrews. So we're wishing everybody to stay safe, do your best, and this is Jamaica. We do the best we can and keep the prayers going.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Reporting from the Dallas Castle Main Road, I'm Jamaica Maitland. It's back to you in studio.
The Jamaica Fire Brigade is urging Jamaicans to desist from making prank calls during natural disasters. Commissioner of the Jamaica Fire Brigade, Stuart Beckford, reported that the JFB received numerous prank calls following yesterday's quake.
We would have had reports of buildings collapse on Halfway Tree Road when we turned up. It was falls and numerous other calls around the corporate area that turned out to be prank. I want to use this medium to ask members of the public, please desist from the practice of making false calls. What it does is tie up resources that are needed elsewhere, and so it makes our job that much more difficult. So please desist from the practice of making prank calls.
And it's time for a break here on the Midday News. Stay with us, more stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. Dancehall artist Gully Bop, whose real name is Robert Lee Malcolm, is dead. Gully Bop, who was receiving treatment at the Kingston Public Hospital, died on Monday. A few months ago, he went public seeking help to pay his medical bills and for food. He was 59 at the time of his death. And it's now time for the Business Minute. The Tourism Ministry has moved to reassure international partners that the country is still open for business despite the magnitude 5.6 earthquake on Monday. Delana Sivright is the senior strategist in the Tourism Ministry.
Yeah, we've made it clear to all our overseas travel partners that Jamaica is 100% open for business. There's been no major damage, no dislocation, no issues, no loss of life. Nothing as it relates to the earthquake that's affected primarily the eastern end of the island, away from most of our resort communities anyway, and even areas that were affected, Kingston, Portland, etc. All our facilities are operating at 100% normality. Water, transportation, including our airports, electricity, telecommunications, all intact, no issues whatsoever. Jamaica remains a strong and resilient nation, and preparedness is very important to us, and we have messaged that to our global community that we are prepared for disasters, and we have very strong building codes and so on, and everything is 100% fine and okay going forward.
Further afield, energy giant BP has reported lower than expected. And we do apologize for that abrupt cut in that report. Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, about 5,000 migrants from Central America, Venezuela, Cuba, and Haiti marched from Mexico's southern border on Monday, lamenting the lengthy processing time for refugee or exit visas at Mexico's main migrant processing center. Under Mexico's current migration system, those seeking these visas often wait for weeks or months without being able to work. The group marched north from Mexico's southern border to the U.S. border. On the international scene, the FBI is reporting a 33% decline in anti-Asian hate crimes in 2022 when compared to 2021. The United States reported 500 incidents involving anti-Asian bias in 2022 compared to 753 incidents in 2021. The hate crimes included assault, intimidation, and robbery, among other things. And Israel Defense Force is reporting overnight attacks on hundreds of Hamas targets, eliminating terrorists. It said it was expanding ground operations into Gaza as it seeks to destroy Hamas and prevent it from being able to carry out further attacks on Israeli soil. And those are the top regional and international stories. I'm Carrie Simpson.
And we head to a quick break. When we come back, Spencer Darlington will have your midday sports report.